The short answer is yes, but it requires governments at all levels working together in concert, local, state, and federal. Government can do a lot of things, partnered with people, and certainly our philanthropic and corporate communities. And that's part of what we were discussing. Mayor Bell was there as well with our Cities United convening, the second of its kind. We had not only the governments, mayors, city council members, and representatives from 40 other cities, but we also had our philanthropic community and corporate partners there as well. So local government certainly can't do it by itself. We can do a lot of things. But what we're really talking about is long-term unemployment or underemployment, especially in communities of color and especially African-American young men and boys. What we're talking about is lack of educational attainment and really people having a sense of hope and a vision for the future. And so what we're really seeing is folks in many instances saying, I'm not seeing the kind of change that I want. I don't see the governments working in partnership and cooperation with each other. And how do I make progress myself? The issues of unemployment, especially in communities of color, the summer is coming. Summer jobs are critically important, but year-round employment as well. Investments in workforce training and development programs. These are the issues that we really have to come to grips with, as well as the levels of crime and violence in many communities of color. So this is very complicated, but it requires all of us to work together.
Mayor Bell, so much of the conversation that I've heard here in Baltimore the last couple of days, in fact, the very speeches that were offered here yesterday in this public square in front of City Hall pertain to race. And yet, unlike Ferguson, Missouri, this is a community that is governed by African Americans. Indeed, 3 of the 6 police officers who were arrested and have been charged are black, which tells me it's about far more than race. Do you think that too much of the conversation has been racially focused?
Well, to a certain extent it has been, but you know what you have to understand, this is not an African American problem. This is not a Baltimore problem. This is an American problem. And what we've got to do is come together at all levels of government to restore that social safety net that ensured that everyone would get a decent education. Once you get that education, you would have an opportunity to get a decent job, to build your neighborhoods and strengthen your communities. That safety net is not there, and it's up to all of us at all different levels. We've had the last 6 or 7 years of stagnation coming from the federal government, and at the local government level, we've had to come together and cobble ways to use the resources to strengthen our communities and neighborhoods. So it's not just an African American problem, it's an American problem, and we've all got to work to find those solutions and implement them.
Are the problems, Congressman, that we're here to discuss government created? Is that why we're talking about government solutions?
I think there are a whole constellation of problems here, but there are some systematic underlying problems that should be addressed by government, both at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. Just last week, for example, we had a big debate in the Congress over a budget that came to the floor. And that budget, frankly, will make poverty worse in places like Baltimore. We've put together alternatives that would improve the situations for families in Baltimore and elsewhere. And we haven't been able to move that agenda forward. So yes, it is time for people to come together. We need civic organizations. We need the private sector. Yes, we need government as well. And the debate that's going on right now in Washington, while it's often abstract in terms of numbers and documents, the real world impact it can have will make a difference in people's lives. And that's why, for example, the child tax credit, that helps millions of Americans. The proposal in Congress would scale back the child tax credit, would actually put millions more Americans in poverty. We've got proposals to improve investments in childcare, in early education, and also expand, for example, the earned income tax credit, something Republicans say they're for, but have not put the money into the budget to address.
Mayor Nutter, much of the conversation this week has been about the so-called 1.5 million missing African-American men, the fact that 1 of every 6 are missing because of either premature death or incarceration. I'm wondering if, practically speaking, you're prepared to go, in your case, to Commissioner Ramsey, you've got one of the best police chiefs, I think, in the nation, and ask him not to enforce the low-level crime so as to reduce the prison population, or do you fear that in the neighborhoods people would then see a spike in crime?
Well, citizens, black, white, Latino, Asian, anyone else, people want safe neighborhoods. And you know, as much as we focus obviously on violent crime in Philadelphia, and we've certainly seen a reduction, 37% reduction in homicide over the last 7 years, a 17% drop in violent crime. I mean, people are not willing to put up with any level of crime. And so we did decriminalize, not legalize, but decriminalize small possessions of
Marijuana?
small amounts of marijuana. But I mean, if you break in somebody's car, I'm not going to say to the citizens, well, you know, that's, you know, not a violent crime, so we're not going to try to do anything about it. I mean, that's insane. People want safe neighborhoods. The issue is, again, going back to what my colleague Mayor Bell and the congressman said, how do we get jobs on the table? How do we get employment on the table? How do we invest in communities with economic development? And whether it's in Baltimore or Philly or Birmingham or the like, that's really what will lift everyone up. And the congressman lays out the case. I mean, the president has faced such fierce opposition from people in the majority in the House and the Senate, the Republican Party, to virtually anything that he's trying to do. And so it's not about making a false choice between enforcing the law on violent crime versus nonviolent crime. People want to be safe. They don't want people taking their stuff. What needs to happen is investments in education, employment and training programs. And again, I'm going to come back to, we're here at the beginning of May. Kids will be out of school soon all across America, and we need to stay focused on the issue of summer jobs and skills building for these young people.
The mayor mentions Republican opposition. You mentioned Republican opposition. The Republican response would be, wait a minute, the funding of the Great Society has been a failure. All of these programs have not generated the sort of jobs that are still needed. Maybe it's a time to go in a different direction. You'd say what, Congressman?
Sure, two things. Yes, absolutely we need to do a lot more, but it has not been a failure. According to the President's Council on Economic Advisors, if you did not have the Great Society War on Poverty, 40 million more Americans would be in poverty, and many in deep poverty today. So we have made gains, but we know from what's happening in Baltimore around the country, we've got a long ways to go, which is why we have put forward proposals to begin to address these kind of matters on an urgent basis. Just last week, I did a conference call with the chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, G.K. Butterfield, Barbara Lee, who's a member of the Budget Committee working on these issues, and Bobby Scott, who's focused a lot on the criminal justice reform issues. There are specific proposals right now in Congress that can make things better in places like Baltimore around the country. And instead, what we passed in Congress, the Republicans, a $10 million estates get no estate tax. 10 million plus.
Just making the point, though, when you view it in partisan terms, you have to acknowledge that the urban areas that are most afflicted by the problems we're all trying to solve are governed by Democratic leadership. I want to ask Mayor Bell one final question. Before these cameras leave and before Americans begin to refocus elsewhere, not Baltimore, what should our agreement be? What should our resolve be about the lesson of Freddie Gray?
Well, the lesson of Freddie Gray is that you had a young man who had certain skill sets but was unable to find a job. Therefore, he hung out on the streets with other individuals who were in a similar situation. There were no role models, no efforts to really bring substantial support for him to have a decent life. And we've got that problem all over this country. And if we could go back to what we had with the WPA, that we rebuilt our infrastructure using labor and using individuals who were hopeless at the time, we could rebuild America. We spend hundreds of millions of dollars to build schools in Iraq and Afghanistan, but the Congress will not support building schools and building opportunities here in this country. We've got to do better than that. We're a better country than that.